Good afternoon. I pray that your Friday is going well. Can you believe we are in May and we're finally getting May-like weather? If you're like me, you're feeling like we went from hot to cold really quick. And so in the midst of that, it makes you try to adjust to what do I wear, what do I do, etc., so on and so forth. But listen, I'm not the weatherman, and thank God I am not. I can't tell you what the weather is going to be this weekend, but I hope to see you this weekend. In fact, I'm going to beseech you, brother and sister, that I do see you this weekend. Here's why. We're starting a new series titled, How Long? Dealing with the aspect of patience. How to wait when you don't want to wait. Listen, this is going to be mind-blowing. Over the next 4 Sundays, we're going to dig into that. As you know, this year's theme for 2019 is fruitfulness, based off Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. And in those verses, it talks about these aspects that make up the fruit of the Holy Spirit. And to walk in that, we need to be engaged in all areas of that. We can't do it apart from one another or apart from each aspect of it, but engage each part. And so throughout the year, as I mentioned before, we're going to discuss different parts of it that help us become better as a whole. So you know it lists. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, goodness, kindness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. In other words, they can't be legislated. But in the middle of that is patience. Love is kind. Love is sweet. Love is admirable. Joy is favorable. Peace, we all want that. But patience, many of us lack that. So here we are dealing with patience. And so we're going to start the weekend in the book of James chapter 5 verses 7 through 11. And we're going to look at what it means to have patience in the midst of challenging circumstances on the job, with family, in marriage, and being single. And yes, we're not going to highlight you singles of being patiently waiting for a man or a woman. That's not what I'm talking about. Just patience in being who God calls us to be. But I'll give you this insight. I'll give you this nugget. And I want you to share it with your friends and family and bring somebody with you this weekend. The nugget is this. That God, watch this, uses patience to develop us. And it goes through a process. And there's a start time and there's an end time. That's the good news. Here is the challenge. We don't know when the start time and the end time is necessarily. And or when we know it, it doesn't make us wait or be patient any better. And so what God is looking at in the midst of our patience is not only how we wait, but what we do with while we wait. Sometimes that's sitting still. Sometimes that's development and engagement in terms of education or exposure to new things and new opportunities. Other times, it's just simply doing everyday life, what you do every day. And you go, oh man, that's so boring. No, 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 no. It's in those moments of doing ordinary things that our extraordinary God shows up and does things that wows us, that lets us know we're on the right course. So here's the deal. We're going to wrestle the next 4 weeks together about what it means to be patient from a biblical standpoint. We're going to talk about what we don't like to talk about, like things that make us impatient. And then when we become impatient, we become discombobulated. And then oftentimes there's disunity because we start looking at people and places and start placing blame when God is not asking us to play the blame game. He's asking us to play the trust game. Trust him in the midst of patience. And so you want to get a head start, look at James chapter 5 verses 7 through 11. We're going to see some exhortations and we're going to see some examples of patience. I'll briefly tap on 2 and then I'll be out of your way so you can enjoy the rest of this sunny day. He uses a foreman as an example and he uses Job as an example. You talk about patience. One, farming, trying to grow things. What that's like, we'll dig into that deeper. But in essence, a farmer, watch this, has to have an expectation. He has to be willing to be in the midst of cultivation. And he has to, all in the midst of all of that, keep his anticipation that God will bring about a manifestation. So we'll see that in the farmer's life and how it teaches us patience. The other person, Job, 42 chapters of Job struggling, wrestling with loss, with grief, with disappointment, with anger, with frustration, but he never lost his hope or trust in God. There were times where he even cried out, God, just take me out of here so I can be with you. But then he came back to his senses and realized that God was up to something in his life. Look at me if you're watching this. I want you to know that God is up to something. And we have to patiently, you and I, walk with him and trust that he will bring it to pass. So I can't wait to see you Sunday and talk about this more in person, to have intimate dialogue about it. And oh, by the way, this Saturday we're doing cleanup. Yes, we're going to spend a couple of hours early before it gets hot. So come, we'll have lunch. There'll be drinks here. And just get to meet people. Bring somebody who normally doesn't like doing church. Here's a great way to volunteer and give back amongst other people. So until I see you, take care and God bless.